If you are a B2B service-based business owner and you are looking to gain more clients, create more impact, and more revenue in your business, tune in to Amplify Your Marketing Message with Christine Campbell-Rappin. Every week, we're going to take you through how to build an audience of buyers, mastering your marketing message, and making offers that convert consistently. We'll see you all on the inside. It is really important that we don't make the hard things unnecessarily hard in our business and the easy things hard as well. I'm super excited to welcome our guest today who's going to give us a quick orientation to actually getting stuff done. Not just once, not just every blue moon, not just when Mercury is not in retrograde, but all the time. Today, we're talking about accountability and doing accountability well so that you actually create consistent results. Please give a very warm welcome to our guest today. Robin J. Emdon is here in the house. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hello, and thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
I'm excited to have this conversation because you and I were chatting a couple of weeks ago, and something you said really lingered with me, which is, I'm much too smart to get in my own way, and yet I did for a really long time. So let's talk about the productivity paradox. Why is it so hard to actually follow through and get something done?
Okay, well, there's two different answers to that question. The first one is, I think I'll start with the second one first, because it really is the critical point. We are biologically hardwired to procrastinate. That said, I do know that there are people who don't procrastinate very much, if at all. And for many people, if they do procrastinate, it's not a significant problem in their lives. Sometimes that's an environmental situation. They just can't procrastinate in the lives that they live, the busy lives that they live. There's no space for it. But I'm talking about someone like me who works from home, and procrastination is an option. And I realized I had like a facepalm moment about 5 years ago where I realized, well, yeah, I do it a lot, because I'd always treated procrastination very much like I thought of as a common cold. Oh, it'll cut, before the age of COVID, when every sniffle was something that could be something very serious indeed. Most of us just work through colds and just think, oh, whatever, I'll get over it. I'll just carry on. And I did the same with procrastination. Oh, I'm procrastinating today. Oh, don't worry, I'll do it tomorrow. The classic procrastinator's mantra. Not very smart, you might think. And actually, I was bragging about being smart when I was having a coffee with my brother in a coffee shop in 2019. And I just got my degree. And I was really pleased with myself because I'd not been allowed or able to finish my education when I was a young man. And I had now succeeded in doing it working from home. And I was so pleased with myself. And my brother was so bored and could not care less, really. Well, he did a bit, but he was feigning, I don't really care. So I thought, okay, I know, I'll chivvy him up. I'll tell him, oh, trust me to take 10 years to do something that I should have done in 6, which is true. I should have done the degree in 6 years. It took me 10. And he said, oh, yeah, why was that? And I said, oh, procrastination. And I laughed and I changed the subject. And I thought, on the way home, I was thinking, you know what, that really isn't that smart. I have got a degree now, but hang on, you're a trained life coach. I mean, I trained in 2001 under the tutelage of Tony Robbins and his team. And I was and it was a brilliant training. And it meant that when I came back to England, I was able to set myself up in business as a life coach. And on the way home, I was like, how dare you? How dare you procrastinate, Robin? How very dare you? That's just not something that you should be doing. Your clients never procrastinated. I never let them. And I thought, okay, so, all right, what's the solution to procrastination? Actually, I thought 2 other things on the way home. The first thing I thought was, where else in my life does this show up? And I realized absolutely everywhere. And the second question was, how much does it cost me? And I was like, really, really angry by the time I got home, angry with myself, and also very, very upset. I was almost in tears when I thought about all the things that it had cost me. Again, not very smart. So I called my brother and said, "Oh, just remind me, I had a mental pen and paper there. What was the cure for procrastination again? I know I did 100 days or so with Tony Robbins and all sorts of his things that he did. And I know that I've read loads of books. I've got my Sundoku collection, which are all the books I bought about personal growth that I put on my bookshelf, my shelf development shelf, as I call it. Never really read all of them properly. But I can't quite put my finger on it. What is it? What's the cure?" And he was a mental health professional at one time in his life, and he for many years. And then he said, "I don't really know." I thought, "Well, you don't know, and I don't know. What the heck's going on?" So then the gift that kept on giving, kept giving, and that was COVID happened. I mean that in an ironic sense, not in a happy sense, but it caused all the lockdowns, and it meant I had even more time on my hands. And then I started studying and researching the copious amounts of research that have been done into procrastination and productivity. Hundreds and hundreds of papers have been written on it. I didn't read all the papers. I went to the summaries, but I knew how to do it because I got a degree, right? I'm smart. And the critical thing that I discovered, coming full circle back to what I was saying, was it's biological. It's part of our survival mechanism. It's in here. Now, if you don't struggle with procrastination, as I say, it's probably because environmentally you don't have the opportunity, or you're one of those few very lucky people that have developed skill sets from a very early age where it's just not an issue for you. Fantastic. I love that. And every time someone tells me they're one of those people, I always go, "Oh, tell me more," because I try and pick their brains,
Yeah. Well, I think there's permission, and it's wired that way. And two words that really struck me is I allowed it and I had created the space for it. So we have to manage the inner game because we are the ones making our choices, right? We have influence for sure from the outside, but we're making our inner choices. So you say that there's actually some chemical allies that we can use to help us go against the biology, but tap into still natural focus. What does that really mean?
Okay, well, we would never go against biology. That would be a foolish thing to do. What we need to do is understand biology.
Okay.
And I don't. I'll be honest with you. My last exam at school, which was the last time I took any kind of science exam, my degree is in arts and humanities. I did psychology, I did philosophy, and I did history. No sciences in there. Or ironically, because my book has got an ology in it, it's get results ology. There's a reason for that, but I don't want to digress. I'll stick to the point that you've asked me to make. So so we don't go against it. But what I discovered was, I was saying about my very last exam I did at school in science, the very last time I did any kind of science, I got 9% in biology. I was furious, but not for the reason you might think. I actually spoke to the teacher that marked the exam afterwards, and I said, "What do you mean I've got 9%? How dare you? Why did I get 9%? And he said, "You didn't answer any of the questions." I said, "I know that. I don't know the answer to any of the questions. It goes in this ear and out the other. It's not that I'm not willing. It's just that I can't retain the information. Science and me are not good mates." And he said, "No, but you spelt your name right." So I felt sorry for you. All right, okay, fair enough. So I'm not a scientist, right? But I do know how to read science just at a surface level. And when I was looking at the research, it was all neurology and psychology and biology. It's all in there. And I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to go deep into the science papers because clearly I won't understand them. But I am going to look at the conclusions. I am going to look what the scientists have said. And then I'm going to translate it into English. It's British English. I'm sorry about that. We've got more words than the Americans. What can I say?
I'll help translate the Canadian in between.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. So, but I translated it basically. I said, okay. And what I discovered was that we do have natural allies. The people who don't procrastinate naturally tap into these natural allies. And I will tell you, and it took me about a year to learn 3 words. As in, I don't need to, where are they? Look them up. Because my brain just doesn't retain them. They are dopamine, acetylcholine, and noradrenaline. And you need all 3 of those neurotransmitters present in your brain when you are being in your most productive state, when you hit peak performance, whatever you want to call it, right? And that's the last time I'm going to mention those words, although I will say most people have probably heard of some of those, we've all heard of dopamine hit, dopamine junkies, all of that kind of thing. So I thought, well, I need to translate these not into what they're called, but what do they do? And I came up with the productivity trifecta. You need your inner productivity team. And that is, dopamine is the conductor, which is like the conductor of an orchestra. And the conductor resides in the prefrontal cortex of your brain. And that is where there is an absolute cacophony of noises that are all the disparate parts of your life, and you're organized, and the things that you need to organize. And the conductor comes in and he brings them all together, gives them the music, brings them all together, and turns the cacophony of sound into the music of your life. And he does it, or she does it, because they are able to think rationally and calmly and intelligently and apply a very well thought out strategies to the things you need to do with your life. That's the conductor. But then you also need the scholar. Now, the scholar is an interesting one because I did mention that is the acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is present in us when we are children. Now, maybe you know some children. I know maybe you even were once a child. I think I was. It was such a long time ago. I have a vague memory of being a child. Mm-hmm. Children are brilliant at focusing. They just are. I understand they can be easily distracted. You know, a little bit of wind in a child is like, they'll scream their house down. I'm really upset now. I've got this gas. But normally, when they're healthy and happy and they're not struggling with wind or some kind of pain or hunger, they are focused, laser-like. How many people can remember have children that just sit and watch the same movie over and over and over again? My eldest son watched Cars over and over and over again. I could tell you every line of Cars because I had to sit and watch it as well. It was always on in the background. Total focus. Children focus on, you buy them a lovely present for Christmas. It comes in a beautiful box, but they forget what's in the box. They just play with the box, but for hours and hours and hours. Focus. Here's the kicker. When you're an adult, the neurotransmitter, acetylcholine, see, I'm struggling to remember it again, right, is not naturally present. We can produce it, but we can't naturally. It's just no longer just in our bloodstream. We have to generate it, and you know when it's happening because it's when you're focused. So, for example, if you sit down to do something and you find yourself focusing on it, and you spend 5 minutes on something, and you look up at the clock on the wall and you realize, no, it's not been 5 minutes, it's been 5 hours. That was you focusing. Time, you lost track of time. That is the scholar. All right. And so you need to create the environment in which the scholar can flourish. So get rid of all the distractions, all the usual tips that you'll read in a million books and courses on productivity tell you get rid of the distractions, deal with them. That's so the scholar can come in. The final one is the fun-size warrior. Now, the fun-size warrior is like a fun-size chocolate bar that you'll have in your lunchbox for your children. So a fun-size warrior, not the big warrior. Now the big warrior resides in your in your. You see, it's science again. Just science, and we're just not brilliant. The limbic system, right? I had to search in my brain just to think, oh yeah, there's a biology word again. The limbic system, which is the oldest part of your brain. And it's also the one I obviously don't see. I have problems accessing when I'm trying to concentrate. It's where you get your fight, flight, or freeze response from. It's vital. And if you think about it, our brain only has two functions. If you think about it, our survival and our procreation as a species. That's it. Everything else is just gravy on the food. It's just extra. It's just living life. But you have to survive and you have to procreate. Those are the things that we were born to do. And that all comes from the limbic system, and it's all powerful. It's very, very strong. It's primal and it's strong. It's much stronger than the prefrontal cortex, which is a much newer part of your brain. And so what happens there is that if the big warrior comes out, they are ready to fight, flight, or freeze. But if you're in that state, what's called threat modality, you're not going to be very productive. You're going to be you may be very productive at running away. You may be very productive at hiding from your responsibilities, procrastination. That's where it's hardwired, guys and girls. You may be very productive at any number of things that have nothing to do with your work, because it's flight, fight, or freeze, right? So that's the big warrior, and we need the big warrior. If you're ever attacked by a man-eating tiger, you need the big warrior. Or as I prefer to think of it, bills you can't pay, landlords trying to evict you, bosses being nasty to you, bad relationships or just arguments in relationships, bad news about health, yours or someone else. These are all triggering your limbic system. They all trigger your threat mode. Big warrior comes out. You either fight it, you fly, or you freeze because it's like you're terrified. What am I going to do about this terrible news? Or you run away from it, right? So the point about all this is you don't want the big warrior, you want the fun size warrior. And the fun size warrior is the noradrenaline, where you get that little edge, that little bit of stress, that little bit of anxiety. Like James Clear talks about in the Goldilocks principle, not too much, not too little, just enough to give you that edge. It's like happening to me right now. If I sit back in my chair and completely relax, I do distract myself and forget my train of thought, but I'll completely lose my train of thought. I'll be off with the fairies in no time. I'll be like, oh, squirrel, I'll be gone. But because I'm literally on the edge of my seat, I'm much sharper, I'm much more focused, I'm much more capable and willing and able and wanting to get on with the day.
I love this because there are things that you can tap into, guys. We heard it. You want to talk to the people with your focus. That's your conductor. Bring in your scholar and bring in that little bit of edge to get off zero. And getting off zero is one of my very favorite principles. I want to ask you one tip here. How do you build accountability that actually works? Because you had this moment from shock and disruption and frustration and anger with yourself of, wow, did I waste opportunity? It's costed me more than I really anticipated. But you're now taking the lesson, the insight to action. What's the one tip to building accountability that actually works?
Okay, so this will sound very self-serving, and it's not meant to be. And just to give you some background, I'll tell you what it is, and then I'll explain it. Get yourself an external accountability buddy, friend, or coach.
Yeah.
There's the amateurs and the professionals, anything like that. Now, I always say that you have to really be careful about when you're working with friends and buddies. By the way, not your significant other. It's not fair to ask them to hold you to account. They already do, indirectly or directly, but it's not fair to make it their responsibility. That's just not a nice thing to ask.
1,000% on that one.
Right? So it needs to be somebody that you can share accountability with. Now, there's a cost involved in that, which you will probably have to do it for them. So that's a time cost, and you can't get back time. You can get back money, but you can't get back time. So always think about that. And an accountability buddy also may or may not be good for your psychology. They might just tell you, just get on with it, dude, because you're crap at that. Pardon my French, that, it's like,
I have clients all the time say to me, Christine, you're going to just tell me to go do it. I'm like, there is an element in me that says, yes, just go do it.
Yes. But
if you're talking about not doing it, you could have executed this. Stop procrastinating and take action.
But if your accountability buddy doesn't know what they're doing, they can undermine your confidence and Correct. They can actually drag you back. So that said, I've had many accountability buddies over the years, and it's a brilliant way to go. But you can also go for a professional external accountability coach. Now, I have to say, I did say that's self-serving because that's what I do, but I wasn't an accountability coach. I only became it because I started writing the book. And as I was writing the book, now I've got to say, the book is 95% of this book is self-help. Okay. And it's written in the intention that you don't need anything else. That's very important. And it's written in plain English, and it's divided up into sections and subsections that you should make a lot of sense. And I obviously don't have time to go into that today. But the point is that as I was writing the book, the research, because I always went back to the research. That's why there's a science in the name, Get Resultsology. I kept going back to the science. It kept pointing at accountability as one of the most effective momentum builders towards productivity that you could possibly imagine. Why is that important? Why external accountability? Two things. First, if you work for yourself from home, like me, maybe you've got a nice coffee machine. I do love my coffee. I'm a bit obsessed with my coffee. I've got a nice view from my window. I work flexible hours. I can pick and choose around my clients what hours I work. I have a great lifestyle. But the one thing I can't recreate is a boss. I mean, I get up in the morning, I'm looking in the mirror, it's my boss looking back at me. He's my boss. He's a lunatic, but he's my boss. But he's really bad at holding me to account. And that is the critical point. For people who struggle with procrastination, making excuses, because not everybody, a lot of people are like me, they don't recognize that they were even doing it for decades. Common cold, procrastination, whatever, didn't occur to me, right? Is that you've got to, with accountability, you have to have that in your life in a way that connects with other people.
I love that.
Right? Because we are a herding animal. We like being amongst other people. In fact, that is the other point about your brain. It's wired for survival. It's wired for regeneration, for procreation, but it's also wired to be social. And we look to our peers. Now, if you have a project to do that's going to take you maybe 6 months or a year to do, or in the case of my book, it took me nearly 5 years to get everything in place and get the book finally published earlier this year. That's a big project, and it's daunting, and it becomes overwhelming. Procrastination is easy to set in, and it's so far off in the future, the targets, the goals, it's very difficult to stay focused throughout. But if you have an external accountability coach or buddy, they can say, okay, never mind what you're going to get done in 6 months or a year. What are you going to get done by the end of today? What are you going to get done by the end of the week? What are you going to get done by the end of 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks? Come back to me and let me know. And if they are the right person for you, you don't want to let them down.
I love this.
That's the point.
Guys,
it's social.
It's social, and it is about getting help. I want to ask you, Robin, how are you working in your business right now to amplify your marketing message? What's working with you to gain clients, to hire you as a professional accountability coach?
Okay, so again, this was a kind of thank you for asking. This was a kind of chicken and egg situation. I didn't know which to do first. I actually wasn't coaching when I started writing the book. The book I wrote for myself. It was like, I really want to understand this because I was so upset about this issue that had been going on under my own radar. I think of myself as a smart, intelligent person, but then I had this massive facepalm moment. Oh my goodness, what have I been doing? Right. And so the point about that was that as I was writing the book, and the accountability started to creep in there as a theme that I put, it weaves through the book, but the book, as I say, is self-help. But I realized that I'm starting again. I haven't been coaching, for a long time. I became a full-time single father in the early 2000s and concentrated on that more than my coaching. To be honest, that's where I went, and I did other things online with marketing and so on. And then I thought, okay, so I could offer this as something now that I can offer people. I'm a modest person when I say I'm actually quite a good coach. Okay, self-serving again, but if I don't sing my praises, who will? So here's the point. I know when I published the book that I'm an unknown. So I decided, right, okay, I don't mind. I'm not proud. There's nothing in the book that's original. I didn't do any new research. I simply brought the disparate strands together and translated it into language that I understood, and I hoped other people would understand. And so now you can buy the book if you want to online, but what I normally do is I just give it away as a free PDF. And that is how I'm reaching people, because I give them the book and I say, look, read the book, take it with my blessing. Absolutely. Hope it works for you. Let me know. Drop me a line. I'd love to know. And of course, if you're ever in the market for the belt and braces approach, the top hat and tails approach with belt and braces is a better analogy for us Brits, then you will probably want to be thinking about an accountability coach, of which there are many. I hope you will consider me. And of course, I will teach you laser targeted, laser focused, get resultsology accountability coaching.
Okay, so how do people find you, connect with you, and get that free copy of the book to start their journey and being more effective?
Sure. Two things. People come find me on LinkedIn. Just look up my name, Robin J. Emdon, on LinkedIn. That you'll find me. There are no other Robin J. Emdons in the world. I promise you that. One is more than enough. It's more than enough for me. And if you want the book, I have a very easy to. I have two websites, but obviously I've got getresultsology.com. You can find it there. But equally easy, or maybe easier, I have really useful tips.com. As in, yes, I'm really giving it away. Useful as I hope you find it very useful, and tips as in it's full of them. Really useful tips.com. That takes you straight to getting a free download of the PDF of the book. It is unabridged. It's exactly the copy that you would buy as a paperback or a Kindle book on Amazon.
I love it, guys. Go connect to Robin. This is an important topic. You are not in your own isolation struggling. And the key is getting help. Thank you for being our guest today. Absolutely a pleasure to have you. And guys, I want you to know this, because one of the things that we do in our business, absolutely, is we just hold your hand. We know that when you're starting, you're wired to get in your own way. And yet it is costing you more than you could afford to reach the results. So I want you to connect to Robin. I want you to be back here for our next episode. And right now, subscribe, and we'll see you next week. That's a wrap on another amazing episode of Amplify Your Marketing Message with me, your host, Christine Campbell-Rappin. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss another great episode. And be sure to visit christinecampbellrappin.com/podcast to get a free resource on how to master your marketing message. We'll see you all on our next episode.